Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session, How to Bring Joy to Your Personal Life and Your Virtual Events. My name is Danielle King with the Auto Care Association, and before we begin, I'd like to share a few housekeeping notes. Today, we are using the Event EQ Hive platform, and we wanted to provide a few tips on how to make the most of your experience today. Join the session chats to share your thoughts on the content and connect with your colleagues about the session you're currently attending. We also encourage you to visit the exhibitors link in the lobby to learn more about our partners who helped put this event together. Spend some time visiting our sponsor pages in the exhibitor section to see how their support can enhance your experience. If you have any technical support questions, feel free to type your questions in the chat box or email capital@pcma.org for prompt assistance. If you have questions for the speaker, please use the Q&A function, to type in your question. Look at the Publish tab in the Q&A section to upvote questions that have already been asked. The speaker will address questions at the end of the session. On-demand sessions are available after the conference 24/7 for your viewing pleasure for 90 days following the conference. So you will be able to access this session and the other breakouts if you miss anything. Once the session ends, please join us back in the keynote room at 4:10 p.m. for our closing reception featuring the Interesting Conversation game show. Now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Carrie Abernathy. Carrie is co-founder of the Association for Women in Events. Carrie is also currently lead meeting planner for the industry engagement team at Altria Group Distribution Company. In her spare time, she runs the blog A Woman with Drive that ties in her love of all things golf and leadership together. And she is also a speaker on several topics to include elevating women in business, leadership in difficult times, and bringing joy to virtual meetings. Every Monday, Carrie co-hosts the Talkcast series, Events from Black to White, a discussion on equality and the events industry with her colleague, Derek Johnson. She was also the founder of the Events Industry Sexual Harassment Task Force, a committee that is now being led by the Events Industry Council. For 15 years, she has enjoyed working in the meetings and events world and connecting with others. She currently resides in Radford, Virginia with her dog, Ginger. Please join me in welcoming Carrie Abernathy.
Thanks, Danielle. Just making sure you guys can hear me. It looks like my sound is on. All good? Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. And I am so excited to be here with all of you, not talking about politics or COVID or really that big P word, the pivot. So really grateful that I'm here to discuss happiness with you and my session on how to bring joy to your personal life and to your virtual events. So again, thank you to the Capital chapter. Thanks, Danielle, for that great introduction. And just a little bit more about me. So you got to hear kind of the roster of what I've been involved with over the last 15 years. So why am I involved in the study of happiness and bringing happiness to events? Well, I have a psychology background. I have a BS in psychology from Virginia Tech. I also love studying human behaviors, and I think that's really important, especially during this crazy time, and really studying behaviors and adult learning styles behind virtual events and the virtual event experience. And I also recently finished the Yale course on the science of well-being. So you will see a lot of those facts and figures tied into this presentation today. So let's dig in and get started. So topics that we'll cover during this presentation, we'll talk about the fundamentals. So again, going back to that psychology. And before we talk about happiness, we have to talk about what we think makes us happy and why it doesn't. And spoiler alert, what really does make us happy. And of course, the whole reason you're here, actionable items on how you can add happiness and joy to your personal lives and to your virtual events and to your attendees. So we're going to start with a question, and I think I'm going to start this poll. What do we think makes us happy? And I'm going to try to start this poll here and give you guys a few seconds to think about it. Is it success? Is it money? Is it power? What in the long run would you need over time to be happy if it was just one thing? Okay, I see the answers changing here. So I'll give it one more second. All right, I think I can go ahead and close the poll. So I'm not sure if you can see the results, but 90% of you said success and 10% of you said power and 0% of you said money, which is really interesting because in a Harvard study with over 250,000 participants, they also were asked the same question. And actually, maybe you attended one of my other events where I spoke on this already, or maybe you're just lying, but 71% of the respondents said that it was money. And that's not really surprising. And I have some data and figures to back it up. We love money. We think money, for the most part, most of us, clearly not the people on this call, but for the people in this study and for a lot of people in the world, we think that money will set us up for life, will set us up for happiness, will give us everything that we really need to achieve everything in our lives. And just some figures to kind of run that home, we spend 70 billion with a B. We spend $70 billion per year on the lottery trying to win money. This is crazy to me. 70 billion, again, with a B. So that is more than we spend on concerts and music ticket sales and sporting events per year. So yeah, I don't know if I believe the poll that just went out to this group, but we sure do love money, and we sure do believe that money will make us happy for the most part. And why do we want money? We want stuff. I mean, look at this here. Yeah, if you're powerful and successful, you'll probably have a private jet. You'll probably have the Bentley, but it takes money to get us there. And you can be successful without money. So if you were thinking, okay, if I'm successful, I'll have that money. Maybe not. So, I mean, if you've heard the latest in any music lately, so country music, rock music, rap music, they're always talking about having that G-Wagon. They're always talking about having the private jet. People are always thinking about keeping up with the Joneses and needing the Benjamins and, you know, keeping up with our next door neighbors. And just, we want the latest stuff. We want money so we can have stuff. And we want the latest and the best stuff. It gives us a little hit of adrenaline when we see the new iPhone is coming out. And you can't tell me that you don't want the latest and greatest of this and that you wouldn't spend thousands of dollars each year trying to make it happen. So we want the latest, we want the greatest, and stuff is always coming out, right? The newest version of something is always coming out. So what else do we think will make us happy? We have this idea of the perfect self and a true love ideation. So first off, this is a big one. We believe that getting to that perfect physical version of us will somehow truly make us happy. If I'm sure you've heard this or seen it on TV. You know, you watch The Biggest Loser, you hear how significantly it would change someone's entire life if they were to lose weight, or there's so many shows with plastic surgery about just getting to that perfect self and getting rhinoplasty or a breast augmentation. And I have a figure here. It's 528 billion, again with a B. That's what the global beauty industry is worth at this point, 528 billion. And that's before the diet industry and the plastic surgery industry. So you can be sure that that number is significantly higher. But we do have in our mind this feeling that if we get to our perfect self, we might be able to achieve happiness. And we'll talk a little bit about why we feel that way here in a second. And the ideation of true love. So I put a picture of kind of that perfect couple, the one that says, "Oh, I love you. No, I love you more." And it kind of makes us a little bit sick, right? But we're also a little bit jealous because many of us feel like finding that person that will complete us is really important to our happiness in life, finding someone that will understand us. Finding that forever, that commitment to us will truly make us happy. And we're all sold on the idea of happily ever after. If you don't believe me, listen to the radio, to all the music about love and heartache and achieving that happy ending, and on TV as well. And think about Disney and almost all of the Disney movies and what they're based on and what happens in the end. People fall in love. So we really have it deeply ingrained in us that finding true love will make us happy. So what am I not telling you? These things, they do make us happy. Of course, they make us happy. Who wouldn't want to win the lottery? Who wouldn't want to have $1 million show up in their bank account? Who wouldn't want to have the latest and greatest of the cars and technologies and that mansion and the vacation home and have a perfect body and look in the mirror and be happy every single day? But what I'm here to tell you is that these things do not make us as happy as we expect. And they actually don't lend themselves to long-term happiness, which is what I want to discuss here. And you need to think of things like money and stuff and true love and having the perfect self. It's a hit of serotonin. It's like a drug, you get that hit, but it quickly goes away. And what I want to talk to you about is how to build things into your life, into your events that are more sustainable to achieve longer term happiness. So why? I don't want to leave you hanging. I want to back this up with some statistics and figures. So the first one I love, and it's a little bit crazy, so stay with me here. Why don't they make us as happy as we think? Why doesn't money and having everything make us as happy as we think in the long run? Well, studies tell us that our intuition is just wrong. So there are so many research studies and facts and figure and data that exist out there that show lottery winners are no happier than the rest of us over the long term. They're not happier than someone who makes $50,000 a year, actually. And if you've even seen like The Curse of the Lottery or any of those shows, it kind of goes into it a little bit more. However, our intuition still tells us, even though I just told you those figures, you know that they're true. You've seen these stories about lottery winners not being happy over the long term. Your brain is still probably telling you, well, okay, all of that is true, but I wouldn't feel that way. If I won the lottery, it doesn't matter what's happened to everyone else. It doesn't matter what's happened to the data with the data. If I won the lottery, I will be so happy. I will be able to pay off my mortgage. I'll be able to buy that vacation home. I'll have everything I ever wanted, and I'll truly be happy. So regardless of how many times I give you those figures, and honestly, I still feel this way. If you win the lottery, you won't actually be any happier. And our intuition is wrong because our brain just tells us over and over, you'll wake up tomorrow still buying that scratcher, still buying that lottery ticket, because your intuition is wrong and it tells you that having money will make you happier. Also, reference points are everywhere. And what do I mean by this? Think about what you see on TV every day, and think about The Biggest Loser, and think about those shows that talk about plastic surgery and getting to the best version of you. And think about every time you pick up a magazine, there is the latest and greatest stuff. There are amazing looking people. And our reference points tell us that basically, no matter what we do, there is something newer, younger, hotter, more successful out there, no matter where we end up. So if we do lose 20 pounds, yeah, we're going to be happy for a little bit. But when we pick up a magazine or watch a show, our brains are kind of hardwired to say, ooh, that's the latest, that's the greatest. Oh, that person looks a little bit thinner. And oh, that person's a little bit more successful. Or let's say you already have a great job that pays well, but you will always see references to people like the Kardashians who just make more money, have more success, relative success, than you. So these reference points are kind of subliminally in our lives all of the time. And also, our mind just gets used to stuff. And I will give you an example. Think about if you have children, think about the first time your kid said, "Mommy, mommy," or "Daddy." You were probably there videotaping it and so ecstatic and just you were elated during that moment. But it probably doesn't feel exactly the same when you hear "Mommy, mommy, mommy" when you're getting ready in the bathroom on a random Monday, right? Also, think about the first time you said "I love you" to your significant other and how massively impactful and momentous and how great that moment felt. And it probably doesn't feel quite the same as when they left for work or left for the store to run an errand and they just said, "Hey, love you, see you later." So as bad as that sounds, it's actually really good because our mind is wired to just get used to stuff. Think about if you lose your job or you lose someone close to you and how awful it feels in that moment. But over time, your brain slowly gets used to stuff because we can't stay in one state for too long. It's just not good for us. We can't stay mad all the time. We can't stay upset or grieving or in pain at the level of those first moments all of the time. So our body just gets us used to stuff. Our brain just gets us used to stuff. So I always like to throw this in. Now I've probably depressed you and I started out so good, right? Like, yay, we're not talking about pivoting or the shift or politics, but we're talking about happiness. So the good news is that there are things that make us happy and there are things that make us happy in the long term. There are several strategies that we can implement into our daily life that lend themselves to long-term happiness. So this is the good part of the presentation. Think of that part before as setting it up for the really good stuff. So I'll start with things that do make us happy and give you some examples. Social connection. And I have to start with this one and get it out of the way because it's not really fair that I'm showing you people in person cheersing with their glasses, but we really do crave social connection and it really does give us happiness. I am by nature an introvert and I have to be an extrovert for my job. And I've worked from home for the last 8 years, but during the pivot, I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to say it, but during the pivot, I miss people. I miss social interaction. I missed being able to, just go out and have a drink with girlfriends or connect with people. Social connection is really real. And it doesn't have to be, having a meaningful 2-hour-long conversation on the phone or a Zoom happy hour. It's little bits and pieces of social connection that keep us in that good state. So let's say you're walking to get coffee and you're waving to people and you're saying hello to people and you stop to have a conversation with a homeless person. And when you get your coffee, you chat really briefly with the barista. Those moments are all social connection, and having that social connection really does lend itself to long-term happiness. And exercise. I also like to get this one out of the way early because people, including myself, really don't like this slide. We really don't want to hear that we need to exercise more, right? But it is true. And studies show that when this is up against pharmaceuticals and treating depression, exercise is actually more impactful than treating our depression than taking drugs. And I think that is so impactful to me. That's so huge. So it doesn't have to be daily exercise. It's great if in between Zoom meetings, you can stand up and do a walk around your house or go outside for a few minutes. But incorporating exercise a few times a week, you will see that level of serotonin and endorphins rise within you. And it does lend itself to long-term happiness. And kindness. I do like this one, and not just any kindness, but meaningful acts of kindness. So So taking time out of your day to write a thank you note that's really impactful and meaningful for someone else. And the best part about kindness and meaningful kindness is that studies show us that it doesn't have to be expensive. We don't have to put out $10,000 to, get some sort of longer term feeling of happiness. We could spend $10. We can spend no money at all volunteering our time at a soup kitchen, or in this time, maybe volunteering with a group to put on a meeting. I just signed up to volunteer with the Age of Conversation Summit to plan content for their meeting. And it has just been so impactful volunteering for something. So maybe that's not kindness on kind of the normal plane that we think of, but meaningful acts of kindness really are good for other people. And actually they're really great for us too. And I'll go back to studies and data again. Doing something really meaningful for someone else leads to a feeling of goodness for up to 10 weeks. So I think that's really huge. So just trying to incorporate some bits of kindness into your day. And sleep. This is a harder one for most of us to achieve, because it's not just getting sleep. It's not just getting 8 hours of sleep. It's getting quality sleep. So it's finding ways to de-stress, and it's finding ways to monitor your sleep. Maybe you have a Fitbit where you can monitor what REM sleep you're actually getting and what deep sleep you're actually getting. Newsflash, you're probably not getting as much as you think once you start tracking it. And there are several reasons for that. Obviously, this is a really stressful time. When you have a couple glasses of wine, you actually don't get that deep sleep as much as you'd like. I hate to be the bearer of bad news on that one, because it feels counterintuitive. It feels like, I need a glass of red wine to go to sleep, but sober sleep really is the best. So finding ways to get sleep, maybe taking electronics out of your room to include your TV, and sorry to suggest it, and your phone and your laptop, and making time for you. Meditation is another one that I'm not going to put up on a slide here, but was really important when we discussed it during our studies on the science of well-being, on how we can achieve long-term happiness. So finding even 5 minutes to meditate before bed, and finding ways to get deeper sleep and consistent sleep really do affect your mood, and really do lend themselves to longer-term happiness. And experiences. And this is probably one of my favorite ones, because I love experiences. And obviously I have golf up here. I run a golfing and travel and leadership website, A Woman with Drive. But, having a massage, making time for yourself, and, going on trips when the world opens again, or going on virtual trips. Travel is good for the soul. But I have to caveat all of this by saying that experiences are only really beneficial to long-term happiness if you're able to savor those moments. So if you're able to get a massage, but not think about your to-do list after you leave the salon. And if you're going on a trip, not making a TikTok every few minutes, or looking at Instagram or posting photos, but taking real time to put your phone down and really, really savor the moment and those experiences. That will lend itself to longer term happiness. And now the part you've all been waiting for: how this translate to bringing joy to your virtual events, and hopefully in the future, our live events. So number one, again, that social connection. And how do we achieve that? I've seen a lot of great conferences and platforms that are adding back in meal breaks and coffee breaks for their attendees. So not just having back-to-back talking heads, but having breaks in between, 15-minute, 30-minute breaks in between, where attendees can enter a Zoom room, and maybe you give them a code to Starbucks, and they're, having their coffee, or maybe just give them a few minutes to go make a coffee in their K-cup, or just at home. But they have moments where they can break and relax and try to connect with people and network. And Grubhub does something similar. You can purchase lunches for your attendees or your staffers, basically anywhere. Same for Panera. I put up that example as well. And also connecting through fun. outside of the conference. So I've seen a lot of events ending their conferences with virtual happy hours. I think we've all been on a lot of virtual happy hours lately, but how do we add that experience to it? How do we add that interactive element to it? And this is a picture here of the Association for Women in Events, and it was our awards gala this year. And it was just such a great time. We had music and an MC, and it was laid back and there were no rules. But, you know, some people really kind of like that structured interaction. So thinking about how you can bring experiences to your attendees to connect them, but also allow them to network. So they're not just watching a musical act, for example, or they're not just watching someone like me who's talking at you right now, but they have the ability to either take a chat offline or connect in a Zoom room afterwards and really talk things through with one another. I think people are craving that interaction virtually right now. And experiential design, you know, this has been so important for meeting professionals, even before the pivot, before the shift, and it's vitally important now. So I'll just talk about, for example, the Zinc Agency is one of the groups and vendors that I work with to bring experiences to my attendees. And I'm partnering with them later on this year to do a famous chef, like small group, 70 people or less experience. So they have access to the celebrity that they normally would have seen in person or would have never had the chance to see. And pulling off something like this is usually a little bit less expensive than in person. So it's a good option. Also, there are so many things you can do that don't cost an arm and a leg, that don't involve a celebrity. So don't think that those are your only route and that you have to build in this massive budget. I've seen small group Family Feud style sessions and Jeopardy style sessions and pub trivia nights be so fun. And I keep using the word impactful, but truly impactful for your group and for your attendees and for you. It brings that element of fun. It's experiential. So don't worry if you don't have a huge budget. There are so many ways out there where you can incorporate fun, networking, and interaction. And change it up for the attendee who has been sitting at home and has been, I'm telling you, on every single virtual platform that is out there. And they're a little bit tired of, and maybe you are too, of this experience of listening to webinar after webinar or just having your standard happy hour. So, and exercise. There's so many different ways to incorporate this into your virtual meetings. And if you're like me, you don't love being on camera and exercising. So it doesn't have to be the yoga and wine session or the Zumba session that are very popular right now. You can incorporate so many other ways to get your attendees moving and just give them that boost of endorphins and serotonin. For example, before the conference, you can create and release a playlist of exciting and fast-paced songs and really get them amped up while they're either at their desk or while they're out exercising on their own. Or you can start, you can use gamification to start a Fitbit challenge, for example. And if you have like a 2 or 3 day conference, you can start a leaderboard of who is walking the most steps and who's, taking steps during your meetings. And also making sure that you have some of your meetings not via Zoom and cutting off Zoom and just having some traditional call-in meetings so people can get outside, where you do push them to, take their dog on a walk and call in and be on those meetings is going to be really important. And lastly, compelling content. And this is so important. I think I've touched on it a few times, but adult learning styles had changed so significantly over the last decade. And even before COVID and coronavirus, we were finding people's attention span was just super limited. And now pack that into, being at home and being stuck in your home office and maybe having to teach your kids and dealing with all of the external stuff that our home life brings. So making sure that you make it really experiential, really impactful, really fun for your attendees is going to be important. And the more engaging it is, the more that they feel like they can get something out of it and they can be involved in it, the better it will be for them, the better it will be for you, and you will walk away with happy attendees. And CSR, of course, those are buzzwords, right? Corporate social responsibility. During live events, it was pretty easy for us to weave in something. It's been a little bit more challenging, I would think, during the shift to virtual, but I actually ran an event that was really great. And we asked the head of a homeless shelter to virtually come and speak to us about their group and what their group does. And we had the ability to pick and choose different toiletry items virtually that would go into bags and write notes to those individual people living at the shelter that would go directly to them. And I think a good idea is following up a few weeks or a few months later with the shelter and seeing if anyone is willing to give a testimonial on how that might have impacted their lives. So you can definitely add CSR and kindness into your meeting. And I'll go back to saying that it doesn't have to be as simple as the donate button during registration. That actually is not incredibly, again, impactful. I'll find another word soon. But you know what I mean. Just finding something that's a little more personalized and finding a way to for you and your attendees to actually touch people's lives is going to be really important. So feel free to screenshot this one. We're getting near the end of my deck here. I just kind of wrapped everything up in a nice little package here. Again, random acts of kindness. Challenge your staff and attendees to take on at least one a day. It's really fun. It's free. It's easy. Maybe start the day off with some intentions, and then ask your attendees to, do random acts of kindness throughout their day or throughout the event, and maybe write in on what they did and have them share that. I think that's really wonderful. Volunteer and help others, incorporate CSR, of course, experiences and experiential design. So think about while you're designing your conference and your online meeting, how to bring surprise and delight through interaction to your attendees. And then networking and social, of course, make sure that it's not just, me talking to you for an hour, but that we have the ability to connect afterwards, and that maybe there's a room that the speaker can go into and talk one-on-one with people afterwards, and people can sign up. That's a really great option. Make sure your attendees have the ability to network with each other and grow their individual and personal networks. And presentation and communication tools are really important, and how you pull that off and, make it happen is going to be really important as well. And exercise, of course, getting people moving, getting people physical exercise, but also think about mental exercise. I don't know if we went into that too much, but making sure that attendees have time to rest their brain. Maybe you give them a group puzzle to do. I've seen some really cool, I think it's jigsaw.com or something similar, where people can, just go mindless for a little bit, or they can do a crossword that you put together that's fun and you've customized it to your group. Also something we didn't touch on, but purpose, finding your purpose, finding your attendees, finding their purpose is vitally important when it comes down to long-term happiness. So I think people, especially now, are all looking with ways to have more purpose. What is our purpose? If you've been laid off, you especially are probably there right now, but how do you help your attendees walk away with purpose? And before I go to the next slide, I just want to preface end all of this really with saying that you don't have to incorporate all of these into your programming. If you just pick and choose 1, 2, or 3 of them in any given order, they do help lend themselves to happiness within the group and have people walking away with that feeling of happiness and longer term happiness than maybe just giving them a swag bag, which, by the way, really fun, really cool, but is not as impactful as thinking back about that volunteer experience, or how, you had a really cool exchange with someone, or you grew your network. So I always like to end the presentation with this. Happiness is not just a place, but also a process. Happiness is an ongoing process of fresh challenges and attitudes and activities to continue to be happy. So super grateful that you guys had me on here today. I look forward to taking questions. I hope that you reach out to me via email, follow me on Instagram, check out my website and blog, and I'd love to connect with you after the event. So please reach out. All right, I think we're going to the Q&A part.
Yeah, Carrie, one of the questions that actually just came up with, they loved your ideas about the gamification, social media, and really ways to engage. But they're looking for some ideas of how do you engage those attendees that are 55 or plus that aren't into social media or games. What are some ideas you have?
Yeah, I've definitely had this challenge before, and this is where like your pre-event communication is vital. So making sure that if you do use some sort of gamification, walk attendees through the process of how to download it, how to utilize it. Make sure that you have Q&A sessions. Make sure that you have an information booth where you're walking them through this, or just make it simple for them. I've seen people drop stuff into registration where they can say, yes, I'll join a walking club. And then more information is sent to them after the fact. So not everybody is there. People are quickly getting there. People are quickly getting there in this time. So I always hear from my 55 plus group and club, like, don't discount me. Like, I'm figuring this stuff out. Like, I may not know TikTok yet, but I've figured out Facebook, and there are definitely routes that you can find. I'll say that not everything is one size fits all. So I always tell groups, and I try to give to my group many different ways to engage and interact. You don't have to do TikTok or Instagram. I don't even do TikTok, but you don't have to do Instagram, for example. You can participate in something else. So get down on the level of your attendees for sure. But I will say, don't discount attendees. They can easily be trained. I know that before the shift, people were digging their feet in, and attendees were like, I'm not learning this new thing. And we kind of eschewed virtual meetings altogether. But now that we've been forced to do it, we are here and we've arrived and we're getting into it. So make sure you remember that. Don't, just make sure you remember that with your 55 plus crowd too.
Thank you. Another question, Kimberly actually asked if you could go back a slide. I think she had a question on the slide.
Do I need to go one more?
Kimberly, can you put in the chat if this was the correct one that you were looking for?
It might have been earlier in the presentation.
She just said it right at the end, so I think that was it. Okay. So
if you want to screenshot this, please do. Also, again, reach out to me. I'm gonna put in the chat my email again. I don't know if you guys can all see it. I'll go public here. I will put my email in. I would love for you to connect with me after this. And I'm happy to send you the slides, go through the slides, chat about my experience with virtual events. awomanwithdrive.com. There, I sent that out to everyone. Also, just a quick plug for the Age of Conversation Summit. That is the group that I was talking about that I volunteered with, and I'm volunteering with through September 9th. And it is for meeting planners. The event is for meeting planners. We have 13 tracks that are trying a little bit of everything. So if you haven't had a virtual meeting yet and you're not sure how Zoom rooms work, or how to develop great content virtually, or you just want to see some of the crazy stuff we're doing in the Unicorns and Rainbows track. That's what it's called. We're trying crazy ideas out there so that you don't have to, then make sure you join us. And we're kind of like 80s, 90s theme. So we have a romper room. We have a ton of live entertainment. You can come and check it out. It's kind of like a showcase for event planners. So I'll also drop, if I can find it, I'll drop the reg link in here as well, or you can reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Of course. This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.